For February 25th, 2024. If you would please stand as you are able and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Would the clerk please call the roll of the members?
Jenny Snell,
Present.
Scott Ohm,
Here.
Rachel Holteen,
Present.
Janice Hoppy,
Present.
Amanda Weaver,
Here.
Corey Stites,
Here.
Leah Dozeman, Dan Larson.
Present.
You have a quorum.
Thank you. Are there any changes to be noted in the agenda? And I would like to recognize Councilor Hoppy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, I'd like to move to amend the agenda to add Council Bill number 052024, an ordinance authorizing the appointment of an administrative hearing officer for liquor licensing matters and declaring an emergency as item number 4 on the agenda, and all subsequent agenda item numbers adjust appropriately.
Second.
Are there any objections on the council to this adjustment to our agenda? Seeing none, we will adjust the agenda as the councilwoman has directed. We have a proclamation, and I'm going to go to the podium. I'd like to invite Morgan Richards to join me at the podium tonight for a proclamation in support of Women's History Month and International Women's Day, March 2024. Whereas Women's History Month is declared annually as the month that highlights the contributions of women throughout history and in contemporary society, and March 8th has been recognized across the world as International Women's Day since 1911. And whereas in March 1980, President Jimmy Carter issued the first presidential proclamation declaring Women's History Month, Women's History Week, to align with International Women's Day to commemorate the accomplishments, perspectives, and experiences of women in the United States. And whereas in November 1893, a Colorado referendum passed women's suffrage into law, making Colorado the first state in the Union to give women the right to vote. And whereas, while the right to vote is a common topic of study when examining women's history, there are many more issues, perspectives, and accomplishments that require investigation across history, literature, science, politics, and the arts to appreciate and understand the significant contributions of women throughout history. And whereas, the 2020 Women's History Month theme, established by the National Women's History Alliance, is titled Women Who Advocate for Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion, and the theme for the 2024 International Women's Day is Inspire Inclusion. And whereas, in 2020, the Wheat Ridge community members, led by Morgan Richards, created Wheat Ridge for Equity, in support of anti-racist and anti-oppression efforts, and to support equity, diversity, and inclusion efforts in the city. And whereas women are residents, business owners, and employees, elected officials, volunteers, caregivers, and members of city staff, and make a difference every day in the city of Wheat Ridge, and are celebrated for their contributions. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Bud Starker, Mayor of the City of Wheat Ridge, and the Wheat Ridge City Council formally celebrate the month of March 2024 as Women's History Month, and March 8th, 2024, as International Women's Day in Wheat Ridge, Colorado, dated this 26th day of February 2024. And you might remember that we won't all be here except for the women in our lives. So I'd like to present you with this. Thank you. Would you like to say a few words?
Yes, I will just say a few words. Thank you. I'm really honored. I started to cry. I accept this proclamation on behalf of everyone in our community who has stood up to say that Wheat Ridge will be inclusive, that it will be safe for everyone who lives here, works here, and passes through here. It's upon all of us to make sure that that continues to happen. And because it is also International Women's Day, coming up very quickly is Equity Pay Day on March 12th. And in the spirit of history, I want to also recognize and call out Lilly Ledbetter, whose fight for equal pay led to the Lilly Ledbetter Fair Pay Act of 2009. Yet we still do not have equal pay for women. White women make 82 cents of every dollar for the same job that a white male colleague does. For a woman who is black, she will be paid $60 on the same dollar of that male colleague who is white. And for Latinas, they make only 55 cents on every dollar that their white male colleague earns. So with that, we have more work to do. In the meantime, thank you very much for this recognition and this proclamation. I am very proud to live in Wheat Ridge.
Thank you. Go over there. Okay, thank you. Pardon me. We will now go to our public's right to speak. This is our part of our agenda where any member of the public may come and speak to the council on any item that is not on the agenda. And we have one speaker signed up to speak. I'd like to welcome to the podium Mr. Sam Greenberg. If you come to the podium and introduce yourself, and you'll have 3 minutes to address our council.
Good evening, Mayor Starker and members of council. My name is Sam Greenberg, and I'm here on behalf of Congresswoman Bernie Pedersen to share an update on the work that the Congresswoman has been doing in Congress for the people of Colorado's 7th Congressional District. Recently inspired by her own mother's struggle with a substance use disorder, Congresswoman Pedersen introduced bipartisan legislation to require airlines to carry naloxone on all airplanes in order to help prevent overdose deaths. Shortly after introducing this bill, Southwest Airlines announced that they will now be stocking naloxone in their in-flight emergency medical kits, joining other major airlines such as United, Delta, Alaska, and American. This is an encouraging development in combating the opioid epidemic by increasing the availability of life-saving medications such as naloxone, and is the latest of nearly a dozen bills Congresswoman Pedersen has introduced in her first term, focused on addressing this devastating public health crisis. Additionally, the Congresswoman has been seeing firsthand and hearing from folks across the district about financial hardships facing them and their families, including many with children. That's why in January, Congresswoman Pedersen voted to pass the Tax Relief for American Families and Workers Act, a bill that expands the child tax credit and low-income housing tax credit, and increases disaster assistance for folks in high-risk areas. At a time when so many families are struggling to make ends meet, this legislation provides crucial support, and the Joint Economic Committee estimates that over 15,000 kids in Colorado's 7th Congressional District could see the positive impacts of these benefits just in the first year. Lastly, Congresswoman Pedersen wants her constituents to know that our district office, located at 550 South Wadsworth Boulevard in Lakewood, is open and available if they're experiencing issues with federal agencies. If you are having difficulties with Social Security, Medicare, veterans benefits, or the IRS or otherwise, please don't hesitate to reach out and visit us. Thank you again for your time, and have a good evening.
Thank you, Mr. Greenberg, and please give our thanks and appreciation to the representative. We have one speaker that has signed up to join us online, Elisa White. If you would please unmute yourself, then you will, and introduce yourself to the council. You'll have 3 minutes to address the council. Ms. White, are you able to hear
Yeah.
us? And
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
yes, ma'am, I can. Please continue.
Okay, well, this will be real short. The last time I spoke, I was just wanting to know what the progress maybe had been on the Silver Bullet shooting range. I live right about 3 streets north of there, and I hear the shooting every night inside the house, and then, of course, it's louder outside on the patio. So I think they had said that they were going to be doing some engineering studies and seeing what they could do to better insulate the noise. And I just was wondering if there was any update on that.
Okay, thank you very much. I don't know that we have an update for you right at this particular time, but the staff has heard your comments and will be pursuing that. So thank you very much for calling tonight.
Okay, thank you.
That concludes all of the speakers that I have signed up to speak. And so with that, we will go to agenda item number 1. This is our consent agenda, and I'm going to ask not representative yet, but Councilor Larson, if you would please introduce this item.
Thank you, Mayor. Tonight's consent agenda has 3 items on it. I'd ask the mayor, would you like me to read the title and the motion, or just the title?
I think there was enough substance in here. Please read the issue statement on these also.
Okay. Item number 1A, resolution number 07-2024, a resolution amending the fiscal year 2024 budget to reflect the approval of a supplemental budget appropriation for the reappropriation and reencumbrance of 2023 fiscal year encumbered funds in the amount of $14,676,888. At issue, there are 105 open purchase orders from the 2023 budget that will be carried over to 2024 budget. Each purchase order is associated with a specific project that was not fully completed in the 2023 fiscal year. The funds which were encumbered for these purchase orders were transferred to the unreserved fund balance of the relevant fund when the purchase orders were closed. To continue or close out these projects in 2024, a supplemental budget appropriation in the amount of $14,776,888.46 is necessary to allow transfer of these funds into specific budget line items in the 2024 budget. And the recommended motion for this.
That's all right. Just go and
Oh, okay,
go to
thank you.
number 1B, please.
All right, item number 1B on the consent agenda, a motion to approve the purchase of liquid de-icer materials for snow and ice control on city streets from GMCO Corporation in a total amount not to exceed $85,000. At issue, the city purchases and applies de-icer materials each year as part of its snow and ice control efforts. The city will utilize a state of Nebraska contract with GMCO Corporation to purchase materials for 2024 in the amount not to exceed $85,000. Consent item number 1C, a motion to approve payment to Jefferson Center for Mental Health from ARPA funds in the amount of $100,000. At issue, City Council provided direction to staff regarding usage of American Rescue Plan Act funds in 2022. That direction included payment to Jefferson Center for Mental Health in the amount of $100,000 per year for 4 years for services to Wheat Ridge residents. This motion approves payment in 2024.
Thank you very much. This is our consent agenda. May I have a motion to accept agenda items number 1A, 1B, and 1C?
So moved, Mayor.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second by Councilor Hoppe. Would the clerk please poll the council?
All ayes, no nays, the motion carries.
Thank you very much. And let's see, who was our second on that? It was Councilor Hoppe. Thank you very much. We will now go to agenda item number 2. Councilor Hulteen, would you please introduce this item?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to introduce Council Bill number 3-2024, an ordinance amending Articles 5 and 11 of Chapter 26 of the Wheat Ridge Code of Laws concerning bicycle parking and storage requirements and making conforming amendments therewith at issue. The proposed ordinance creates long-term bicycle storage requirements for large multi-unit residential developments, updates and clarifies vehicle parking reduction allowances when additional bicycle parking is required, and decouples bicycle parking requirements from vehicle parking requirements.
Thank you. This is an ordinance on second reading. It is a public hearing. It is not quasi-judicial. I'm going to open the public hearing. And Mr. Goff, do we have a staff presentation on this item?
We do. Mayor Scott Cutler, Senior Planner, is here this evening.
Okay, Mr. Cutler.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I have just a brief presentation on this one. This ordinance is the culmination of a study session that started back in April of 2023, and then City Council gave staff direction to proceed with an ordinance on August 7th, 2023. So it has taken a while, but we wanted to actually run this ordinance and the EV ordinance together to present on the same evening. So just to give a little bit of background on this ordinance, it is a pretty short one. The main thing that it does is to add minimum long-term bicycle parking requirements for large multi-unit apartment and condo developments over 50 dwelling units. So those are the really large 4 to 5 story apartment buildings that we have been seeing more and more across Wheat Ridge. This will allow for secure long-term bike parking for dense residential developments where unit sizes tend to be smaller and are more likely to be located in areas with better access to bicycle and pedestrian infrastructure. The ordinance also makes a few other changes. It clarifies parking reductions for providing additional bicycle parking beyond the minimum, provides additional incentives to office and institutional uses if long-term bicycle storage or shower and changing facilities are provided. It adds standards for how long-term bike parking and security work. It updates the minimum bicycle parking requirements for all uses to better align with the mixed-use code updates that we did back last summer. And lastly, as a recommendation of Sustainable Wheat Ridge, this ordinance also will decouple bike parking counts from vehicle parking counts and instead assess it against the floor area of the use. So it's based on the size of the building and the amount of people that can get in the building, not the amount of car parking spaces. So they're just going to be separate requirements. We are recommending approval of the ordinance, and I'm able to answer any questions. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Before we go to questions from council, I would like to invite the public to speak on this. I have a couple of people signed up to speak. Our first speaker is Betsy Kopak. If you would please come to the podium, and you could please introduce yourself so that we have the right pronunciation in your name. Then you can go ahead and speak to this issue.
I'm Betsy Kopak, and I live at 25 Skyline Drive, and I'm a member of Sustainable Wheat Ridge. I want to combine my comments on number 2 and number 3. The number 3 is the EV, because they're really so much the same thing in what we want to accomplish to be a sustainable city. You know, both of these issues are looking mostly at multifamily locations, and that's where most of our younger generation is living. That's all they can afford. And I think it's really important to think about it from that perspective, because they're going to be the ones that are most impacted by climate change, and they're also going to be the ones that are most interested in mitigating climate change. So we need to make sure we provide them the opportunity to participate in mitigating climate change by giving them the safe location to park their bicycles and also be able to inexpensively and conveniently charge their electric vehicles. That's all.
Is that all? And would you, you're signed up to speak on number 3. Do you want to, are you all good for tonight?
I'm all good for tonight.
Okay, thank you so much. Just want to make sure. I also have Kelly Blinn joining us to make a comment on this item.
Thanks so much for the opportunity to speak tonight. Would it be better if I spoke to both items since I signed up for both? or-
It's up to you, but they're pretty much alike, so if you want to expedite our meeting, we would appreciate that.
All right, sure. My name's Kelly Blinn. I'm a resident of Wheat Ridge at 4175 Brentwood Street, and I'm testifying tonight in support of both of these proposals. I'll say a few things about the EV parking proposal. This is a key way that Wheat Ridge can support greenhouse gas and air pollution emission reduction by supporting electric vehicle adoption in the city. You know, the city doesn't have a lot of authority over what cars people drive, but it does have authority over its building and energy codes, and this is one way that it can really support residents of the city making a choice for cleaner vehicles, and that can benefit all of us. These ordinances also really help reduce costs when you're adding this infrastructure in a new build or in a renovation, rather than having to go back and trench through concrete later or add infrastructure later. It helps really save on costs if you're just adding it from the beginning. A lot of the studies out there say around 75% compared to having to go back and retrofit later. And these parking structures, parking lots, et cetera, are going to be around a long time, and so it's great to get that infrastructure in now. EVs are coming. In my day job, I work for the state. I work on transportation policy, and last fall, the Air Quality Control Commission extended Colorado's clean car standards, which means out of all new vehicles sold, by 2032, 80% are going to be required to be electric vehicles. We're already at 17% today. That's actual sales data. So they're here, they're coming, there's going to be more, and so it's great if we can be preparing our codes so that people moving into the city can drive these cleaner vehicles. In terms of the bike parking, really appreciate this proposal to build more bike parking and to decouple it from the amount of vehicle parking provided. We think this is really in line with the city's recent efforts to reduce vehicle parking requirements at affordable housing, and hope, you know, this can kind of support other efforts to make our city more walkable, more sustainable, and encourage more bicycle use, and not sort of have that connected to the amount of vehicle parking that's being provided. And also appreciate the city's proposal in that it encourages, in some cases, indoor bicycle storage, and encourage, if there are ways that we can keep supporting e-bike charging, given the significant increase in e-bike usage in Colorado. I keep seeing more and more of my neighbors using e-bikes to get around the city, and again, the state is really supporting that. We've got a tax credit phasing in the coming months that'll help out with e-bike purchases. So those are going to keep coming to our city streets, and I think it's great if we can plan for it. So thanks so much for considering these two proposals, and hope you'll support them.
Oh, can I put my bike helmet on for the, no, I'm kidding. I move to approve Council Bill number 03-2024, an ordinance amending Articles 5 and 11 of Chapter 26 of the Wheat Ridge Code of Laws concerning bicycle parking and storage requirements and making conforming amendments therewith on second reading, and that it takes effect on March 1st, 2024, which is this Friday.
Second.
Second.
All right. Thank you. I will keep it relatively brief. I'm just really excited about this, to all the comments that were made by the speakers tonight. This is this isn't the future of the city, it's the now and the today of the city. And I was actually really inspired by what an ordinance like this could do when we were touring the affordable housing project that the city partnered with, that's kind of tucked back by the Safeway. And they have a fantastic bike parking, secured bike parking storage room on the first floor of that building. And it is such a great way to encourage people to actually use a bike to get around town. And every person you see on a bike is one less person, one less car on the road, one less person taking a parking spot. It's good for the environment, it's good for community health. And I just have seen what one room in a building can do around encouraging people, and especially people who are feeling the economic cost burden of both housing and car ownership. The average price this year of car ownership is about $12,000 a year. And you can imagine people who are struggling with housing, the affordability of owning a car is a double burden. And so with the transit that we have available on many of our big streets, as well as increased access to affordable e-bikes, I think this is just really a smart move for us to make sure people want to continue calling Wheat Ridge home. So I'm excited to vote yes on this and appreciate staff's really good work on putting forward a great proposal. Thank you.
Thank
Mr.
you.
Mayor, who'd you give that second to?
Gave the second to Mr. Ohm.
Okay.
Any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, will the clerk please poll the council?
All ayes, no nays, the motion carries.
Thank you. We will now go to agenda item number 3. Councilor Ohm, would you please introduce this item?
Thank you, Mayor. Council Bill number 04-2024, an ordinance amending Chapter 26 of the Wheat Ridge Code of Laws concerning electric vehicle charging and parking requirements and making conforming amendments therewith. At issue, the proposed ordinance creates regulations for electric vehicle, EV parking and charging facilities within the zoning code, defines terms related to EVs, allows for EV charging facilities of various types throughout the city, and establishes minimum EV parking space requirements.
Thank you. This is an ordinance on second reading. It is a public hearing. It is not quasi-judicial, and I am going to open the public hearing. And Mr. Goff, do we have a staff presentation on this item?
We do. Mr. Cutler's back with us.
Okay, Mr. Cutler.
Thank you again. I'll give a little bit more background on this ordinance, especially for the benefit of the newer council members. This EV ordinance was something that staff was thinking about for a long time, and actually the state did a lot of the work for us last summer when they passed House Bill 23-1233, which requires cities to adopt the statewide parking minimum requirements for electric vehicles. And it also does a few more things, which I'll get into in just a minute. But the intent of this ordinance is to both comply with that state legislation and also establish definitions and regulations that are unique to Wheat Ridge based on Council's consensus, which we received last summer. So I'll give a brief background on the House bill first, and then I'll go into the proposed ordinance and how it affects Wheat Ridge. Like I said, that House bill was approved in June of 2023, and it requires the state board to adopt rules facilitating electric vehicle charging at multi-unit residential buildings, and it also creates additional regulations and requirements regarding EV parking, really meant to further the state's goals of greenhouse gas emissions and expand charging infrastructure across the state. To that end, the bill mandated that municipalities comply with the EV power transfer requirements of the bill, and staff will come back to council later this year to relate how those changes relate to the building code. This is really focused on the zoning code and specifically the minimum parking requirements. So the House bill requires compliance with all of the EV parking requirements in the code by March 1st of 2024, which is Friday, so we are here right at the last minute to get it done. It also prohibits unreasonable restrictions on EV installations for tenants and owners of any property. And lastly, it prohibits local governments from banning EV parking or charging. So those are the three things that the state legislation does. The proposed ordinance consists of a few components, including meeting those minimum requirements. And also attached to the ordinance was a great EV informational guide prepared by Sustainable Wheat Ridge and Mary Hester, our sustainability coordinator. So the ordinance does a few things, creates definitions related to EVs, including electric vehicle charging stations. It creates a category for the more commercial-oriented EV charging stations, like a gas station. Those are called retail EVCS. It creates standards within the parking requirements related to EVCS, including all of those minimum parking requirements. It allows charging stations as an accessory use in all zone districts. So it would allow a charging station in a garage, in someone's driveway, parking lot, or at a gas station. It also allows the retail EVCS in commercial, mixed-use, and industrial zone districts. This is like a grouping of multiple chargers. We've seen those. Tesla has a lot of examples, but sometimes grocery stores will have them in the parking lot, and so this ordinance will allow that to actually happen in Wheat Ridge. It also updates some plan development requirements to ensure compliance for new developments in plan developments. It doesn't retroactively apply these requirements. We can't actually do that. It allows EV parking to be shared if other conditions of shared parking agreements are met, and it makes some other updates throughout the code. So in the code, there's 4 types of EV charging facilities. There's the capable and capable light. That's really the lightest component of EVs. It's really running the conduit, and then for EV capable, it's actually running the wiring, but there's not any additional electrical upgrades that are required. But like one of the speakers said earlier, even just installing the conduit now reduces expense substantially in the long term. So someone's not having to come back in. If there were ever a state or city requirement to add charging, they wouldn't have to come back in and rip up the parking lot to install all of the wires. EV Ready is really focused on junction box and actually having the capacity. And in a residential setting, that's usually a 240 volt outlet in a garage. We're seeing people already doing this, so the state and city requirement won't really have a major impact. People are already voluntarily doing this, and the building code will be updated likely to include this requirement as well. And then lastly, there's the EV installed requirements, which is the actual charging facilities. We've got 2 at City Hall outside as an example. So the proposed ordinance complies with the minimum parking requirements included in the House bill. It doesn't go above and beyond that. Council's direction was that we were going to comply with the minimum, which we are doing. And so the chart within the ordinance shows all of the various parking requirements related to EVs. Highest for multi-unit residential, over 10 units. Lowest for industrial, and then the requirements actually would not apply to more of warehouse uses. So it really has a wide range. And then for those single unit homes, duplexes, and townhomes, the requirement to have, if you have a garage, to have 1 outlet in the garage for home charging. The effective dates are important. The ordinance will need to become effective on March 1st to comply with the state requirements. And then we also have some various requirements related to site plan expiration. We have a few site plans that have been approved, and they have gotten in before the March 1st, 2024 deadline. But we also recognize that if they don't move forward within 2 years, at some point we're going to have to make them comply with the new requirements. So we are proposing a 2-year expiration date on those site plans, and if they don't build it, then they will have to retroactively comply with the state legislation. So that was something that we didn't quite have ready at the August study session, but wanted to make you all aware. With that, I am done, and let me know if you have any questions.
Okay,
Thanks.
thank you very much. Before we go to questions from council, I was going to open this up to the public, but I have no further speakers signed up to speak, so I will go directly to questions from council. Councilor Ohm.
Thank you, Mayor. I have one question. I was watching on the news today, and it talked about there's a percent for Denver. It said that 29% of all EV chargers are not usable. What would be like some way, to make sure that the public, I'm talking about the public ones, that those are usable? Is there going to be some way to someone to call that in, or?
Not in this legislation. I don't know if Lauren or anyone wants to speak to that. I think that's probably just an ongoing challenge of.
Did you say that they're not usable?
Like
Yeah,
from a
yeah,
maintenance perspective?
They're just not usable. Something's wrong with them.
They don't work.
And it's a pretty big number, and it's not just Denver. It's
Yeah.
kind of nationwide, but it's a.
It's probably not something that we would be accustomed to enforcing. I now have a car that has the option to plug in, and as a customer, you can submit that ticket through the charging app.
Okay.
And then the operator gets message from the charging company. So there's probably a method, but we're all still learning, and we can keep an eye on that.
Thank you.
Yep.
Are there any other questions? Councilor Larson.
Thank you, Mayor. The question I have, I guess it gets into the zoning question of a retail site with charging, which could be standalone. There's chargers, and then there's maybe a convenience store. And it is permitted pretty much across the board in both the more traditional zoning classifications and the mixed use. Where for a traditional gas station, a motor fuel station, the city has a number of restrictions, including that separation of 1,000 feet between gas stations. You can't have gas stations closer than 1,000 feet. But that does not apply to EV charging stations. And so if somebody came along and said, I want to put a charging station with 20 chargers and a convenience store in a place that a traditional gas station would be not permitted, I guess the question is, how would that be reviewed? Would it be something that would be allowed use by right, or what?
Yes, it would be a use by right, and that's along the intent of the state legislation to remove barriers specifically to EV charging. Gas stations are a use that typically requires a conditional use permit at the city, so it's not a use by right. But that's generally due to, I think, field trucks having a large impact, and these EV sites are essentially quiet, so they don't have the same negative externalities that a gas station does in terms of noise or fumes or anything like that.
Even with a 24-hour convenience store?
Convenience stores are permitted as a use by right already, so there would be no change there.
And you could have a 20 charging station a half a block from another one with convenience stores?
As long as they comply with the other parts of the zoning code, yes, we could.
Otherwise, the typical motor vehicle retail sites would have to, even if it's whether it's a gas station or a EV charging station, would be required to comply with the standards that apply, right? In terms of, there's a barrier wall, I guess, and some other setback rules.
Correct, yes. All the design requirements for a gas station would still apply to a commercial EV screen wall. I'm trying to think what else.
The
Landscaping.
mixed-use transit stations, gas stations are not allowed in that TOD, but an EV charging station would be.
Correct, and for example, if RTD wanted to add EV charging in their current parking lot at the light rail station or the commuter rail station, this would permit them to do so.
And if RTD wanted to add a convenience store?
If they wanted to, it would be permitted, yes.
If I could add just for a moment, so we're regulating EV charging stations like we regulate parking lots. So parking lots are allowed everywhere. They can be just a standard parking lot, or you can add a charger. A convenience store is a totally separate land use category. So you could have a gas station with a convenience store or without. You could have EV charging with or without, but the convenience store is regulated separately from the EV charging. So you could have a restaurant with a EV charging station. You could have a apartment building with EV charging. But the intent of our code is to regulate EV charging in the same way we do as parking, so with landscaping, screen walls, but beyond that, fairly permissive. So what we see most often is that EV charging lots want to go where there is already something else. They're not usually the ones who want to operate a convenience store. They want to tuck themselves into the parking lot of RTD or into the parking lot of a shopping center or a land use that is otherwise already existing.
I suppose it just seems to me that typically a person commuting would want to recharge within the 20 minutes, half hour that they can typically get in a high-capacity station and move on. And a convenience store would provide them something to do while they're there.
That's possible, yeah. Charging stations are definitely an economic development tool. Where we see them most often is in a larger shopping center where somebody could go and spend a bit more time. So we had we might have mentioned this in the study session, but Tesla came to us once to try to put chargers at Applewood Village Shopping Center, recognizing that people could get a meal, go grocery shopping, do a couple errands. And so that's what we see most commonly. We have not seen an inquiry yet for a charging with a convenience store. That's certainly a compatible land use, but not the most frequent pairing.
More than likely, then, somebody would want to build a charging facility at an existing, say, retail location. Something else that has a reason for people to go there. I don't call them motorists. I think people driving electric cars motorists? I'm sorry, that's not a question. That's all I have, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Counselor Weaver.
Hi, I was just wondering if there are any adverse effects to the charging stations. You know, for a while, homes who lived by big transformers, there's a flashback with the electricity, and I was just curious if there's any studies done on, I mean, I suppose it's like having a laundromat close to you, but I'm just asking the question.
I think that's probably outside our purview here.
The fire district
yeah.
has certainly said that they'd like to opine on the location of an EV charger, especially when it's inside of a parking garage. But beyond that, we haven't had any knowledge of issues. Mr. Dahl, you unmuted, did you?
No, the charging stations are, typically 240 volt and,
Yeah.
and, laundromats. I'm sure there's 240 in most of our homes for various, we run appliances, so
Yeah.
it's really not a transmitter of radio waves in any way. And so the fact there's power being used is, I think, irrelevant to.
Okay, just
to
wanted
that
to ask the question.
Yep.
Thanks.
Counselor Larson.
Yeah, one more question. Thank you, Mayor. The charging station typically doesn't give the electricity away for free, right? The motorist, either through an app or maybe a credit card reader on site. Is there a typical sales tax applied to that? How does that work?
Yeah, and we have a little bit of information on that in the EV 101 guide, but it's a utility, so it's not a sales tax, is our understanding. It's taxed like electricity is.
Okay.
But again, outside of the zoning code purview.
Right. Thank you.
Are there any further questions from council before I close the hearing and ask for a motion? Hearing none, I'm going to close the public hearing, and Councilor Ohm may have a motion on agenda item number 3.
Thank you, Mayor. I move to approve Council Bill number 04-2024, an ordinance amending Chapter 26 of the Wheat Ridge Code of Laws concerning electric vehicle, EV charging, and parking requirements, and make conforming amendments therewith on second reading, and that it take effect on March 1st, 2024.
Second.
There's a motion and a second by Councilor Hulteen. Is there a discussion on the motion? Councilor Hulteen.
Thank you. Again, excited about this moving forward. As was mentioned earlier, Colorado currently has, we are in the top echelon of the country with 17% of our car sales being EVs, and that is only going to increase. And so I think this, again, is helping us make sure we're a competitive city, both for people to want to live here, work here. When we think about the availability of charging infrastructure, I think really recognizing that we've got I-70 curving along the northern and then the western edge of our city, which is a major thoroughfare, and access to charging infrastructure is really important to people traveling across the country, and where people stop to charge their car, they spend their money. The charging station at the Arvada Target, it's in Arvada, is actually one of the most used charging stations in the state. Because it's off of I-70 and people can stop and charge there and shop. And so I think, this is something that the state's asking us to do, but as a city really leaning into it, the more charging infrastructure we have both for our residents, so it's not costly for them later to have to add it, but also recognizing that those charging stations translate to economic development for people to get off I-70 and come spend their money in our city is, I think, really great. So I think this is, it's well thought out, and I'm looking forward to voting yes on it.
Thank you. Councilor Ohm.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to give a quick thank you to staff, really doing your homework, getting deep into this and thinking about where we're at as a city and what we need to do to kind of stay current and looking at our future. Appreciate that. And second, Councilmember Hulteen's comments. Thank you.
Any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, will the clerk please poll the council?
All ayes, no nays, the motion carries.
Okay. Thank you. We will now go to the new number 4 ordinance. Councilor Hoppe.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to introduce Council Bill number 052024, an ordinance authorizing the appointment of an administrative hearing officer for liquor licensing matters and declaring an emergency. This is a public hearing emergency ordinance on second reading.
Okay, this is an ordinance on second reading. Public hearing. I'm going to open the public hearing. And Mr. Goff, do we have a staff presentation on this item?
Sure. This looks like Mr. Dahl's teed up to go.
Okay.
I'll join in if needed.
Okay, Mr. Dahl.
Thank you. As has been indicated in, I think, the text of the ordinance that you have, the city has had difficulty filling a quorum on the Liquor Licensing Authority, and that's pardon me, a situation that really has existed for some time and is being really a challenge to correct. Accordingly, while the city really and the staff really need some time to put together permanent alternatives, one of which may well be an administrative hearing officer. Many cities use AHOs, administrative hearing officers, to handle the licensing work that our Liquor Licensing Authority does. And so while the staff will need some time to put together kind of permanent choices for the council, we do have an immediate need because you have licensees who have to have their licenses processed in various ways, changes, modifications, new licenses, transfers, and that lends itself to an emergency really because those licenses are timely, and if they're not appropriately renewed, then that business can't serve alcohol. And we've all probably been to a restaurant that for whatever reason the license didn't get renewed or processed in time, and that's a real issue for those businesses. Accordingly, we would staff ask that this ordinance, we don't pass or consider emergency ordinances very often, but this is one that really does fit that bill. The case law is very clear that the council's determination of an emergency is just fundamental and is not questioned. So whatever reason you have, and you have a very good reason here, it's important to articulate the reason for the emergency ordinance in the text, and your charter requires that, and so that has been done. Emergency ordinances are effective upon passage. They're posted and published later, but they're effective upon passage. And it is recommended you also have a hearing. I realize this hearing can't have been posted because it's an emergency ordinance. It just got put on the agenda. So in this particular case, it's fair to have an exception to the must sign up rule and ask if there is any testimony, Mr. Mayor, on this ordinance. So you can open and close the public hearing. If there's any testimony, great. And after that, I'd be pleased to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Dahl. Before we go to questions from council, I'm going to ask if any members of the public are here or joining us online who would like to speak on this emergency ordinance. This is your opportunity. If you'd please either come to the podium or speak up on, unmute yourself and speak up on the virtual format, we will bring you into the meeting. I'll give you just a moment to see. I don't have anybody coming forward in City Hall. Do we have someone? Oh, Ms. Richards, please. If you would please introduce yourself.
Hello, I'm Morgan Richards at 3255 Ames Street in Wheat Ridge. I'm also the current chair of the Liquor Board Authority. I want you to know that as the chair, I wholly support this action. We have struggled to make quorum on several occasions, which is not a business-friendly foot forward for our community. This is problematic, and I think that we need to think about different solutions to make sure that our business owners, particularly our small business owners, are able to get through this process, all the repeatable processes, in a timely, efficient, and an effective manner. This included one time where someone flew in from out of state. And I think that we can do better by just looking at more current models. I also will share with you that I really, truly did not understand until I'd been on liquor board for almost 6 months. We are making legal decisions that can only be appealed by going to a higher level court. And while we are well-intentioned citizens, none of us on the board are attorneys. We are not experts in the liquor law, which is complex and it's always changing, as it should be as conditions change. And I think that it is wise to think about taking in new information and going forward with different solutions. But more than anything, it is not okay for us to have to send people away for a show cause hearing or to get their license because we don't have enough people on the dais to be able to vote on what is at hand. So thank you very much. I really appreciate you all taking this under consideration. And we had 2 liquor board members who resigned at our last liquor board meeting, effective immediately. So we're down 3 people.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much. Are there any other members of the public that would like to speak on this issue? Okay, I'm going to close the public input on this portion and go to questions from council. Councilor Hoppe.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't necessarily have questions. I just want to make sure there's some clarification because this is emergency ordinance and council got the majority of it with short notice. If this ordinance passes, which I'll be supporting, then there will be future action at a study session for us to review options. It also, as our next item is doing boards and commission appointments, you'll notice that we have several vacancies in the Liquor Authority Board. And so this was us doing our due diligence to make sure, like Chair Richards said, to make sure that we are being business friendly for our small businesses.
Thank you. Any further questions, staff, before I close the public hearing and ask for a motion? Hearing none, I'm going to close the public hearing. And Councilor Hoppe, may I have a motion on this item?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move to approve Council Bill number 052024, an ordinance authorizing the appointment of administrative hearing officer for liquor licensing matters and declaring an emergency.
Second.
There's a motion and a second by Mayor Pro Tem Stites. Is there a discussion on the motion? Seeing none, will the clerk please poll the council?
All ayes, no nays, motion carries.
Okay, thank you very much. So we had, let's see, we had a motion by Councilor Hoppe and a second by Mayor Pro Tem Stites. 7-0. Okay, thank you very much. We will now move to what used to be item number 4, but is now renumbered as item number 5. And Councilor Hoppe, would you please introduce this item?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is a motion to appoint appointments to boards and commissions. At issue as of March 2nd, 2024, the terms of 21 current board and commission members of the City of Wheat Ridge will expire. Additionally, there are 2 existing vacancies to fill, which include seats on the Cultural Commission and Liquor Licensing Authority, and 1 position being added to the Board of Adjustment per the new board and commission rules going into effect March 1st, 2024. These 24 positions in total are to be filled or reappointed. Additionally, the Parks and Rec and Planning Commissions have 2 members from specific districts whose terms expire in the same year. Term expirations should be staggered. This is caused by an error years ago when appointments were made. Staff recommends council taking this opportunity to stagger those term dates as further described below.
Thank you very much. These will be appointments of the council. We've got, all 4 districts have appointments coming, and the mayor. Actually, I have recommendations to appoint, and I'm going to start with the mayor. So I would like to make the following recommendations, and I recommend to appoint Wanda Sang to the Election Commission for an at-large seat, term to end March 2nd, and Elisa White to the Election Commission for an at-large seat, term ending March 2nd. May I have a motion and a second?
So moved.
Second.
Who got the second?
Weaver.
Councilor Weaver. So is there any discussion? Hearing none, will the clerk please poll the council?
All ayes, no nays, motion carries.
Thank you. I would like to recommend that Mr. Jeff Richards be appointed to the Cultural Commission for an at-large seat, term to end March 2nd, 2027. May I have a motion and a second?
So moved.
Second.
And will the clerk please poll the council?
All ayes, no nays, motion carries.
Thank you. I would like to move or ask for a motion to appoint Celeste Tanner to the District 1 Urban Renewal Authority seat, term ending March 2nd, 2029, and Marcia Hughes to the District 3 Urban Renewal Authority seat, term ending March 2nd, 2029. Do I have a motion and a second?
So moved.
Second.
Who got the second?
Snell.
Snell, thank you very much. Or would the clerk please poll the council?
All ayes, no nays, motion carries.
Okay, thank you so much. We're going to go to District 1 for the appointments. I'm going to you. Okay, I recognize Councilor Hoppe.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move to appoint Celia Daly to the Cultural Commission, term ending 03/02/2027. I move to appoint Cambria Rollo to Parks and Recreation, term ending 03/02/2027, and Krista Hobel to Planning Commission, term ending 03/02/2027.
Second.
Second by Councilor Snell. Would the clerk please poll the council?
Oh, sorry, Mayor, I just wanted it for discussion purposes real fast.
All right.
District 1 does have 2 open seats, still one for the Board of Adjustment and one for the Liquor Licensing Authority. Staff will be asked to reopen those positions for new applicants. And I also wanted to thank our County Treasurer, DeTulio, who is the current Chair of Planning Commission, who had applied for reappointment, had withdrawn his reapplying application because recognizing that he is in an election race and may have to end his term, may have to leave his term before it was over. And so he's allowing Councilwoman Snell and I to appoint someone to a full term there. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Would the clerk please poll the council?
All ayes, no nays, motion carries.
Thank you. We will now go to District 2, and who's handling District 2 today? Councilor Hulting.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move to reappoint Beth Kelly to the Cultural Commission, term ending March 2nd, 2027. I also move to reinstate Juanita Stites to the Liquor License Authority, term ending March 2nd, 2025. And then I move to appoint Kathy Weisbrot to the Parks and Recreation, term ending March 2nd, 2027.
And do I have a second? By Councilor Ohm. Is there any discussion on the motion? Councilor Hulteen?
I just want to make note that, like District 1, we have an unassigned liquor licensing authority position and are asking staff to open that up along with District 1.
Okay, thank you
And
very
I just
much.
want to thank everyone who put their applications in. It was a full roster of applicants this time around, so I appreciate that.
Thank you so much. Will the clerk please poll the council?
All ayes, no nays, motion carries.
Okay, we will go now to District 3. Who's handling District 3? Counselor Weaver.
Thank you, Mayor. I move for District 3, I move to appoint Michael Griffith to the Board of Adjustment, term ending 3/2/2027. I move to appoint Ron Abo, reappoint actually Ron Abo to the Building Code Advisory Board, term ending 3/2/2027. I move to appoint Sandra Davis to Cultural Commission, term ending 3/2/2027, and Jean Vertil to the Liquor Licensing Authority, term ending 3/2/2027. And I move to extend the appointment of Patrick Quinn on the Planning Commission to end March 2nd, 2026, and Mark Duty on the Parks and Recreation Commission to end on March 2nd, 2027.
Second.
There's a motion and a second by Mayor Pro Tem Stites. Is there discussion on the motion? Mayor Pro Tem Stites.
I just want to thank everybody who's applied and serving on our boards and commissions there. District 3 is well represented, and we appreciate everybody who's serving, so thank you.
Okay. Will the clerk please poll the council?
All ayes, no nays, the motion carries.
Thank you. We will go to District 4. Counselor Larson.
Thank you, Mayor. In District 4, I would like to nominate Justin Slocum for the Building Code Advisory with the term ending March 2nd, 2027. And Surma Quinones, Planning Commission, for the term ending March 2nd, 2027. And I move to extend the appointment of Andrew Rasmussen on the Parks and Recreation Commission to end on March 2nd, 2027.
Second.
There's a motion and a second by Counselor Hoppy. Is there any discussion on the motion?
I'd just like to add, Mayor, that we do have 3 openings, Board of Adjustment, Cultural Commission, and Liquor Licensing in District 4.
Thank you very much. Will the clerk please poll the council?
All ayes, no nays, motion carries.
Thank you. I don't see any further work to do on this item. Does this complete that, Counselor Hoppy? We're all done with the things? Okay, now we're going to agenda item number 6, is that right? Yes. Okay. The new number 6, we're going to ask Counselor Snell to introduce this item.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is resolution number 08-2024, a resolution adopting bylaws of several of the city's public bodies. The City Council has adopted boards and commissions code amendments, which come into effect on March 1st, 2024. As a result, each of the city's public bodies have approved bylaws that conform to the code amendments and make general improvements. These bylaws can only be adopted by resolution of the City Council.
Thank you. This is going to be a resolution of the council. It is not quasi-judicial. Mr. Goff, do we have any further report on this item?
Just questions? You got a presentation, Cole?
Very briefly.
Okay, go ahead. Cole.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. As was said earlier, the goal of these new bylaws is really just to bring them into compliance with all the boards and commissions code amendments that were previously passed by the council. But while we were also doing this, we made an effort to align all of their processes so that they would operate in a more similar manner, and this makes it a lot easier for someone to switch from one to another board or for staff to manage them as well. And then we also looked to make general improvements where we had the opportunity to do so. So these were successfully passed through each of those public bodies that have the bylaws on the resolution tonight. That's my presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Okay, thank you very much. I have no members of the public signed up to speak, so does council have any questions on this item? So the boards and commissions that are affected by these bylaws, they've had a chance to review those?
Yes, they've all had a chance to review them. I presented each of the bylaws to all the bodies and proceeded to have good discussions with them all, going over not just what was in their bylaws, but what all the new boards and commissions code amendments were. We discussed how the term limits would affect them, what the new unexcused absences policy is, and all the other things.
Oh, great. I think that sounds great. Thank you. Yes,
Would you mind?
Councilor.
Just
Larson.
one question. As I looked over these revisions by the different board and commission, I did notice that most of them say that it will be a 2-3-year term appointment, all right? Except for planning commission.
Yeah, we could take a look at that. Planning commission members are also under a 2-3-year terms. That's the standard appointment. If it also said that in the other bylaws, it was just reiterating something that's already existing in our code because term lengths are established in the code.
Okay, yeah, as I read through that, I being a former member of the planning commission, I do remember we had the discussion, but I didn't see anything in the resolution specific to term limits.
Yes, the term limits should be established in the code.
Okay.
And that was a change that we made through a separate ordinance change a few weeks ago.
Okay, great, thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, the bylaws build off of the code, so they try to fill in the spots where the code doesn't address issues like term limits and term length.
Any further questions from council of staff on this item? Hearing none. Councilor Snell, may I have a motion on item number 6?
Thank you, Mayor. I move to approve resolution number 08-2024, a resolution adopting bylaws of several of the city's public bodies.
Second.
We have a motion and a second by Councilor Weaver. Is there discussion on the motion? Councilor Weaver.
I just want to thank staff for providing lively discussion on these issues. These are hard things to get through, but you did a great job through our study sessions, and really appreciate streamlining all of this. I think it'll make it a lot easier, like for the process before, for people wanting to check out new opportunities with the city. So thank you so much to staff.
Thank you. Councilor Hulteen.
Thank you, Mayor. Thanks, staff, for all your work on this, and I know it's been a lot of work to reach out to all the boards and commissions. One of the things that I'm seeing this is going to really impact is just helping develop the succession within our boards and commissions. We talked about it at the onset, but, we do have some people who, give long years of good service to our city, and it's really appreciated, but we have a lot of new people moving in, and even within some boards and commissions, just making sure that there's, people who are leading those boards and commissions, and there's somebody queued up behind them, so that we don't run into situations where we lose a leader and there's no capacity within the board that actually knows how to work with the staff liaison or knows, the material function of the board and the impact. So I think one of the things I really like about this is the resiliency within each board and commission to make sure that we've got some pipeline on leadership, and that is changing over and giving people a chance to serve our city. So I'm really excited about this.
Thank you. Further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, will the clerk please poll the council?
All ayes, no nays, the motion carries.
Thank you. We will now move to renumbered item number 7. Mayor Pro Tem Stites, would you please introduce this item?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Resolution number 09-2024, a resolution adopting the Boards and Commissions Code of Ethics. At issue, staff requests that the City Council adopt a Board and Commissions Code of Ethics to instruct Board and Commission members to act in a manner that align with the city's values.
This will be a resolution of the council. It is not quasi-judicial. Mr. Goff, do we have a staff presentation on this item?
Cole's here again to give you a brief update.
Yeah, thank you. So one of the boards and commissions code amendments that the council passed established that the council can remove members at their discretion or for a violation of the boards and commissions code of ethics. So in order to actualize that, we need to adopt a boards and commissions code of ethics, and that's what this item would do. So the code of ethics in front of you, it was presented to all the staff liaisons for all our public bodies and reviewed by them. Overall, it really seeks to just regulate their behavior in their official capacity as well as members of the public. That way we make sure that the members who are representing the city are acting in an upstanding manner at all times. That's the end of my presentation. Happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you very much. I have no members of the public wishing to speak on this, so I'll go to council and see if you have questions of staff on this item. Looks like you had a pretty good explanation, so we will close that questioning period. And Mayor Pro Tem Stites, I would ask for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move to approve resolution number 09-2024, a resolution adopting the Boards and Commissions Code of Ethics.
Second.
We have a motion and a second by Councilor Hoppe. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, will the clerk please poll the council?
All ayes, no nays, the motion carries.
Thank you. With that, we will move to the renumbered agenda item number 8. Mayor Pro Tem Stites, would you please introduce this item?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Resolution number 10-2024, a resolution approving an intergovernmental agreement between the City of Wheat Ridge and the Jefferson County School District, R1, for school resource officer services. At issue, the Wheat Ridge Police Department and the Jefferson County School District have worked together for several years and participated in the School Resource Officers SRO program. The primary mission of the SRO program is to provide formal instruction, informal consultation, and mediation, enforcement, and problem solving for school communities. A formal written intergovernmental agreement between the city and the district concerning school resource officers has been in place for over 10 years. The district has requested the intergovernmental agreement be reviewed and reapproved.
Thank you. This will be a resolution of the council. It is not quasi-judicial. Mr. Goff, do we have a staff presentation?
We do. Division Chief Kellogg is here. He put in the work on this item, so he's got a brief summary of the IGA.
Okay, Division Chief.
Mayor Starker, members of the council, this is essentially the reaccomplishment of a long-standing intergovernmental agreement that has served the public, the community, the young men and women of our educational communities in a wonderful way. It reestablishes or continues to allow for this establishment of a very collaborative and remarkable relationship that we share with the Jefferson County Public School System. And they have asked for us to reaccomplish this so that all members, all stakeholders can reevaluate and review the portions of the IGA so that we can continue to allow for this collaborative effort. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. I have no members of the public signed up to speak on this, so we will go to questions from council. Councilor Larson.
Thank you, Mayor. Is there a way we could briefly summarize any changes between the existing agreement and the new one?
It's remarkably similar. There are very few differences. There's a few word choices that have changed just to recognize some of the cultural changes, but for the most part, everything looks exactly the same. We will serve the same schools with the exception of the 2 schools that have recently closed, and we will continue to serve the public in the same way. The terminology is essentially the same.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Hoppe.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. On page 6, under item E, training, says the Wheat Ridge Police Department shall provide at least basic SRO training to all new SRO officers prior to the beginning of assignment as a SRO or as soon as reasonably possible. And then it goes on to say where basic SRO training can be obtained. Other than the basic SRO training, what other types of training are SRO officers doing, being that they typically will be dealing with at-risk youth?
Right. Pardon me. So they receive that 40 hours of training to begin before they're able to actually be part of the program. In addition to that, they are sent to de-escalation classes. Both of our current SROs are CIT certified, and then there are also several they go to conferences in the summer to make sure that they are keeping up all of the various trainings and requirements that they have. In addition, there are tactical aspects that they have to stay on top of as well. So, as a matter of fact, these last 3 weeks and this week, include some of those tactical considerations as they move through some of those training evolutions.
And would you say that some of those additional trainings that they do, are those youth-specific trainings?
The CIT, so when you go to the conferences, the CIT training they have there, it's specific to juvenile, some of the juvenile aspects of the CIT de-escalation services. The active shooter training that they go to is pretty similar no matter where, what you're doing.
Great, thanks. And then it also says in a couple of different sections to the generality of developing and teaching and expertise and assisting in like the faculty in conducting specialized classes. Can you give us some examples of maybe some of the opportunities that our SROs have taken with our schools to engage with the students in those manners?
Right, so they actually have formalized educational systems that they do truancy intervention with, they do anti-bullying types of classes, and then they do school safety protocols, so they educate on what happens when this happens, what happens when that happens. In addition, they're throughout the course of every single day, they're establishing mentorships with all of the various kids and their families. So their relationships extend well beyond just the relationships with the children in the school, but also with the families who are also tend to be in a learning environment as well. They're still working to figure out and learn how things work.
Great, thanks. One last question. Do you feel like the language in this IGA is encompassing enough that if SRO came to the managing SRO program and said, hey, I think that a class in this or a club in this would be beneficial to this school, is the language available in this IGA enough for that for that to happen?
Yeah. Yes, I think there's some generic language as to the supervision of our SROs. Currently, our crime prevention sergeant oversees the SROs and those types of things. And so just last year, one of our SROs put in place a bike to school program, an educational type of thing that teaches not only the moral compass aspect of doing the right things, but also roadway safety, also a commitment to your partners. So it's a group of young people that ride together with this officer. So I think the language is quite appropriate to allow for those types of things.
Thank you.
Councilor Weaver.
Can you explain do people choose to be an SRO and sort of the kind of personality? Because I just to explain to constituents in Wheat Ridge, is this considered a bad place to go, or do officers choose to do this? And just tell us a little bit about the people who decide to go do this.
It's a special individual who takes on this role. This is challenging. I was an SRO before I started promoting, and I did it because I absolutely loved working with the kids. But the uniqueness of it is the fact that you have to love working with kids, but there's a part of you that, when you sign on that dotted line, you're saying, I also am committing to the fact that I'm going to train every single day and every single time that I have the chance to train to protect these young men and women and to make them feel that. I want them to, when I was there, and the two SROs that I'm privileged of working with currently, they have that very much that same mentality. They're there to protect the kids and to make sure that the kids have this feeling of safety so that they can experience the educational benefits that are there in the school. And so, yeah, it's a special human, special police officer that does this. And I think the two that we have are remarkably suited for this position.
If I could add one comment to that, Counselor, you asked about the process for this. They do go through an interview process. We don't just let anybody be in our schools, so it's a pretty rigorous process. Believe it or not, we do have a pretty competitive process, and we have people lined up now who want to be in those roles in the future. For the two that are in there right now, formerly one was a teacher, and the other one was worked with youth in Parks and Recreation. So they both have a background in that. We don't select an officer who we think, boy, this person is too black and white for that type of position. We really have to have the right personality, or quite honestly, we'd leave it vacant. And just so you know, SROs in this area are atypical, because SROs throughout the rest of the country are usually paid for by the school or through some grant. So this is driven by you and the taxpayers to pay for these folks. And we're glad to put our best foot forward when we do that to build those relationships. So just so you know, it's not anybody can be, and ultimately we'll make that decision as a management team as to who goes there and if they have the right persona to do that.
Thank you.
And I just had a question, just sort of to follow up on that. I assume that once you've identified and qualified and trained these SRO officers, they're sort of on a permanent basis. That's their permanent assignment in the police structure, correct?
Well, currently we have them in a four-year rotational environment. However, there are provisions that allow us to keep those officers in place if they choose to, if they want to.
Okay, thank you very much.
Sir.
Any further questions? Great program. So, there's any more questions. Why don't we ask for a motion on this? Mayor Pro Tem Stites.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move to approve resolution number 10-2024, a resolution approving an intergovernmental agreement between the City of Wheat Ridge and the Jefferson County School District R1 for school resource officers.
Second by Councilor Weaver. Is there discussion on the motion? Mayor Pro Tem Stites.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I absolutely love this program. I get to work with all the schools in the area, and I get to see all the resource officers in Arvada and Lakewood and Golden, and I really enjoy our resource officers here in Wheat Ridge. I work with Officer Mallory a little bit more than anybody else, but he's fantastic. And you know, Councilor Hoppy asked a question about do they have some say as far as programming and stuff goes. I believe it was Officer Mallory as well as the principal at Everett that they were having a few issues with fighting and bullying and things like that, so they ended up bringing our martial arts program in to do some training with the kids, and so they do a great job for our schools, and I really appreciate all the hard work that they do. So and it definitely goes with our chief's relationship policing, because developing that relationship early on is the best way to make sure that the kids don't grow up fearing police. They understand that they're there to help. So thank you for this program.
Thank you. Councilor Weaver.
I also wanted to just voice my support for this program. I actually came to know the SRO, the previous SRO at Wheat Ridge High School, because there were some issues with the neighbors and kids walking through the neighborhood, and just was not familiar, even though I'm a former high school teacher, I was not familiar with this kind of thing. And he knew all of the kids, and he had a relationship with them. And so what would normally be a tough neighborhood problem between a school and the neighborhood, this person just put everybody at ease. And I was so impressed, and then I later worked with him on some other things. And as a former teacher who worked in a school without an SRO, I just sort of can't believe that you would not do what we're doing in Wheat Ridge. And I just thought the program was fantastic. So thanks for continuing it, and I've got my full support. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, will the clerk please poll the council?
All ayes, no nays, the motion carries.
Thank you. We will now move to agenda item restated number 9. Councilor Weaver, would you please introduce this item?
I will. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is resolution number 11-2024, a resolution authorizing the mayor to execute 2 agreements with Jefferson County Open Space to accept Trails Partnership Program funds in the amount of $252,000 and, sorry, $650 for improvements and studies related to the Clear Creek Trail, and for $32,069 for replacing and improving the Hayward Park Walking Trail. Would you like me to read the at issue? I think I can, but.
If you think you can do it.
Okay, I will
I'd
try.
like for you to do it.
I will try. The city of Wheat Ridge was awarded, to say that again, $252,650 and $32,069 from two separate grant awards through the Jeffco Open Space Trails Partnership Program. The $252,650 award was 50% of the estimated cost for specific studies, designs, and improvements to the Clear Creek Trail. The $32,069 award was 25% of the estimated cost to replace the existing asphalt Hayward Park Walking Trail with an 8-foot wide concrete. To receive,
No, go ahead, sorry.
to receive the funding, the city must accept the grant award by directing the mayor to sign the attached grant agreement.
Thank you so much. This will be a resolution of the council, not quasi-judicial. Mr. Goff, do you have any staff presentation to add to the information that the Councilor Weaver has provided us?
Brandon Aldenberg, our grant and special project administrator, who brings all these funds to us, is online if you do have any questions. I don't believe he has a presentation, but if you have any questions for Brandon, he'd be happy to answer those.
Okay, we have someone that can answer questions, the great grant writer. So any questions for our great grant writer? That's a tough one to say. Yes, Councilor Hulteen.
Thank you. I'm really excited to see that there's some money going towards studying that crossing for at Kipling for the Clear Creek crossing, Clear Creek Trail. A couple things when we were talking about this, I can't remember the context, but one of the current, it's a little bit adjacent, but the current trail access goes in front of the Indian restaurant and the Reptile and the whatever's going on with that liquor store. And that access was created because the city had looked into actually purchasing from Lakewood that access that still exists up 41st. And that at the time Lakewood was not interested in selling us that property, but they are now no longer, it's my understanding, using that facility that road was giving access to. Am I remembering this correctly, Patrick?
You know, I think you're right. I'm not sure if the facility's being used. I know they have some facilities down there because we had a major overflow, I believe, on Mother's Day. Maria was down there on Mother's Day, knee high and stuff. So, yeah, I don't know how this corresponds. I'm not sure if Brandon knows either, but if Maria's got anything to add to this.
Yeah, we could certainly reach out to the sanitation district to see if there's interest in releasing some of that property, but they do still have their settling tank and a variety of pipes that still run through there. But we
Okay.
could certainly reach out to them to explore
Yeah,
that.
I'd like to, especially since we'd be looking at creating like a safer crossing there. I mean, the safest thing for bicyclists would be for them to continue west on 41st because it's actually really dangerous for them to be going through those parking lots. I know there's been a couple incidents. So as part of this, I'd like to not lose track of the city investigating again the possibility of acquiring, securing that access so that that can be a designated connection to the Clear Creek Trail. The other thing, the existing tunnel, our lovely tunnel, yeah. I don't know if this really falls in the grant, but it continues to have drainage issues. I know we're all aware of that. And at the very least, it would be great to get the lighting working in there consistently. I ride my bike through a lot of tunnels, and it really is like the one tunnel that just never has lighting in it. And especially with the drainage issues and the standing water that can run in there, being able to see into that tunnel, and it's actually pretty stark when it's bright out, and you go in and you're kind of blinded when you go into the tunnel. So I just want to, as we're looking at Clear Creek access through the Kipling area, we have existing access that is not entirely ideal. And then as we're looking at that 41st crossing, I want to not lose track of that access at 41st. Other than that, yay grants.
Thank you. Councilor Ohm.
Thank you, Mayor. And thank you, Councilmember Hulteen. Yes, on Sunday I had the exact same experience going through the tunnel. It is really, really dark. And I do have some concerns of people going through that tunnel by themselves. I'm going through with the bike, and it's just hard to see if there's glass or whatever on that surface, so it'd be great to have some different type of lighting. The moisture issue seems to be a seasonal issue that comes up from time to time. And that's kind of tough because you don't know until you get down there if you need to go around it due to the water. But I'm really excited about the grant. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions of staff before we go to a motion on this item? Councilor Hulteen.
I actually have a question. I don't even know what the Charlie Brown Bridge is. Which bridge is the Charlie Brown Bridge?
It's the Brown Wood and Meadow Bike Pedestrian Bridge that's just for the trail. It's between 44th and Wadsworth.
Okay, okay.
It crosses Clear Creek almost north and south at that point.
Okay, all right, thank you. Yeah, sorry, that I meant to ask that earlier. Thanks.
Thank you. Any further questions of staff? Hearing none. Councilor Weaver, may I have a motion on this item?
You may, thank you. I move to approve Resolution 11-2024, a resolution authorizing the mayor to execute 2 grant agreements with Jefferson County Open Space to accept Trails Partnership Program funds in the amount of $250,650 for improvements and studies related to the Clear Creek Trail and for $32,069 for replacing the improving the Hayward Park Walking Trail.
Second.
We have a motion and a second by Councilor Ohm. Do we have discussion on the motion? Seeing none, will the clerk please poll the council?
All ayes, no nays, motion carries.
Thank you. That concludes our regular agenda items this evening. Next, we will go to City Manager's Matters. Mr. Goff.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a couple things this evening. Just wanted to give you an update on the process for selecting a new presiding municipal judge. And the RFP has been released. Responses are due back to the city by March 14th, at which point the selection committee that we put together will review and narrow the candidate pool down for interviews with City Council, which are currently scheduled for May 20th. I would like to thank the selection committee, consisting of former Lakewood Judge Ann Stavich, Wheat Ridge residents Chris Hoppy and Diana Lopez, council members Stites and Dozman, and then staff for their work on that. Legal Pete's is having their soft grand opening tomorrow and Wednesday. This Legal Pete's at Gold's Market at 26 in Kipling. Lots of other activity at the center. If you haven't been out there in a while, we'll have more announcements, I think, over the next couple months with some new openings, so excited about that. The city's food truck park, Moonrise Garden Bar and Food Trucks, opened this last weekend on 38th Avenue, so if you haven't checked that out, excited about that also. And then to answer the caller's question from earlier on the sound study for Silver Bullet, as you remember, I think we gave an update. City hired an engineering firm to do an acoustical analysis for the business. That occurred last week. So the engineering firm is writing the report now, so that should be a couple of weeks before we get that back. That's all I got.
Thank you very much. City Attorney's Matters, Mr. Dahl.
Nothing tonight, thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, we will go to Elected Officials Matters. And why don't we start with Councilor Snell?
Sounds good. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a few things. I'd just like to take a moment to recognize all the community members who stepped up and applied to our various boards and commissions. We had a very robust discussion of a lot of boards and commissions this evening, and I think that is just one of the great things about our city is we have so many community members that step up and want to be involved, and so I just want to thank everyone for their time with that. Another special recognition, as Councilmember Hoppy mentioned earlier, Jerry DiTullio is a longstanding member of the Planning Commission, and he's stepping down, but for great reasons. So just a kudos to him. And also just one other thing, a mention in our SRO discussion, there was a mention of bullying in schools, and that's an ongoing problem. And even though it didn't occur in Colorado last week, a non-binary youth was was attacked and later died from a bullying incident. And so forgive me for being a little emotional about it, but I do think it is important for everyone to be aware of the safety of all of our students, regardless of their identity. And so I think it just spills over into everyone that goes to school everywhere. And with that, on a happier note, this Friday, First Friday, Art Centric is holding a art show focusing on photography, and there are some very beloved Wheat Ridge artists involved in that show. So if you can, please come out to Art Centric on 38th Avenue. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councilor Hulteen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've got a handful of things tonight. So first of all, as always, thank you to everyone who applies and serves on our boards and commissions. You make the city tick, and in the best way possible. I really appreciate all of the interest and efforts there. I want to just speak to something I learned about recently, that per our charter, and it came up during our discussion, but you kind of forget maybe the impact it has, but per our charter, you have to actually be a registered voter to serve on our boards and commissions. And that recently played out in learning that a very valued member of our cultural commission, Liz Hurlburt, who is in the process of getting her citizenship, was serving and doing great work around bringing in really diverse interests around culture in our city and really activating new areas that we really hadn't ventured into, was found that she was ineligible to continue serving. And so I'm bringing that up because I very much hope that during my tenure that we do have a charter reform, and that is definitely something that I would like us to revisit to make sure that that is not a barrier for people to be able to serve in our community, because we really depend on the service of those volunteers to help us diversify. And when we have dedicated, passionate business owners and residents who can't register vote because they're not citizens yet, but are in the process of getting that citizenship, I don't want that to be a barrier for them to be of service to our city. So anyway, I will continue to talk about charter reform because I am going to start beating that drum. On a couple of other things, the Happiness Gardens report. Oh my goodness, if you walk by there, they put up little signs for all the fruit trees. And so all these little things that look like sticks just sticking out of the ground, you can like read what kind of tree or fruiting shrub they are and learn a little bit more about what they contribute. So that is a partnership with Denver Urban Gardens. So if you want to learn more about some of the great fruit that's going to be growing at Happiness Gardens, you can go walk through there. I also want to thank everybody who came to the District 2 meeting that Scott and I hosted on Saturday morning. It was really good dialogue, and you know, it's a little squirmy sometimes. It's a room full of people who, you know, don't always agree on everything, but it was a very civil and civic space, and actually it's how we learn the things that we need to pay attention to and focus on and change. So I just want to thank everyone who gave their time and brings their perspectives, and we had a couple of really great moments. And one of them in particular was around mental health. So I'm going to start adding to my Happiness Gardens report, I'm going to start just adding a mental health minute in my comments, because it has come to my attention, not recently, but you know, all throughout our communities, whether it's a senior in high school or a senior citizen, there's a lot of people who are really struggling in our community right now, and they may be our neighbors, and we may not even know it. And I think part of what makes Wheat Ridge great is that we are good neighbors and we are good neighborhoods. So I just encourage everybody to recognize that, you know, you may be running into somebody every day when you walk your dog, that your friendly face and smile and just asking them how they're doing really goes a long way. But I also want us to remember we have a lot of great resources in this community to help people. So be a good neighbor, be friendly. And I know there's a lot of seniors graduating that are, you know, excited, but also a little bit nervous. So so be kind to all the seniors in our community. And that's all I got for today. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Councilor Larson.
Thank you, Mayor. And I would just like to invite residents of District 4, of course anybody's welcome to, but this is a District 4 meeting that Councilmember Dozman and I are planning for April 2nd at about 6 o'clock in the evening at Anderson Park. And invite everybody in District 4. We haven't had a District 4 meeting in a little while, and I hope we get a good turnout so we can hear what the residents' concerns are. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Rowland.
Thank you, Mayor. Couple things. One, I attended a CML meeting a couple weeks ago with the mayor and Mayor Conklin from Edgewater and our management analysis, Cole, who kindly reserved a table for us. It was a very good conversation to hear all the people and our talkers, especially Director Mikulak. Thank you so much for being there and representing Wheat Ridge. Very proud of you. It was my first time going there, so I'm really excited about that. And then the District 2 meeting that we had, thank you for the Grange. It's a really special place in Wheat Ridge, historical. I don't know how many people have actually been inside that space, but they really need membership. And they're working on a website to help facilitate that faster, because currently they only take checks. But special thanks to Dominic Brenton and Michelle Hollingsworth. And I also want to thank Officer Fisher was there, and we had some questions, and she kind of jumped in and helped us out on talking about some of the traffic closures we were having. We were just to the constituents, so thank you. Really appreciate that. And I think that's all I wanted to say is that the District 2 meeting was very, very good, and I asked some questions, specifically like how did people find out about it, and so some of it was by word of mouth. That's something that we're just gonna have to keep working on. Everything was advertised, but it's tough to try to get people to show up, but I felt that was actually, since I've been elected, one of the really great conversations and a really nice space to have in the Grange, so thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Weaver. Thank you very much. Councilor Hoppy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do just also want to say thank you very much to everyone who applied for our boards and commissions. If you didn't get appointed into something that you specifically applied for, consider the Board of Adjustment or the Cultural Commission or maybe the Liquor Board and let us know. We'll be happy to take a look at it. Thanks.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Stites.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll echo that. It's fantastic to see people volunteer to sign up for these boards and commissions and spend a couple of hours a month or whatever it is to help our city out and really provide a lot of service for what we do here in the city. So appreciate all of those people that applied and serve on our boards and commissions. I had the opportunity to re-up my membership with the chamber, the Wheat Ridge Chamber, this week. So. And being a part of the business organizations, whether it be the business association or the chamber, it's a big part of being a business owner in a city. And those organizations do a great job in trying to help our businesses connect with communities, market, operate their businesses better. So I encourage any of the businesses out there to get in contact with one of those people that runs one of those organizations, check out their websites and get involved. Also, the mayor and Councilor Weaver and I serve on the Business District Board, and any business owners who are looking to update their facilities physically as far as their facade, their bathrooms, anything like that, contact us at the Business District and we'd be happy to talk about grants, things like that. And as normal, if you can find it and buy it in Wheat Ridge. Thank you.
Thank you. I would like to echo my fellow councilors' appreciation for the folks who applied for the boards and commissions positions. We really we appreciate your help in helping us to make great things happen in our community, and they happen on a local level, on a decentralized level, and the input that our residents have in that process is just, you can't say how important it is. I want to take a special thanks to our staff who's brought together these, particularly the bicycle initiatives and the EV charging. I think we're, every time I sit on the DRCOG board, and every request for funding has some sort of a pedestrian or a bicycle component to it. So I think our city is really wise to be right out in front of that. I want to, thank our police department for a great presentation on our SRO program. I really support that, and I really appreciate our opportunity to really get to know the young people in our schools and have them gain confidence in our public safety operations and have them be able to sort of matriculate into our society, because they are the future. I wanted to end tonight on a note. We had a passing in Wheat Ridge on February 4th of Eugene Kiefel. He passed peacefully away on February 4th in Wheat Ridge, Colorado, at the age of 92. He was born in Landau, Ukraine on June 12, 1931. He immigrated to the United States in 1952. He built a nationally renowned business. Perhaps you've heard of it, Wheat Ridge Cyclery. I remember buying a bicycle there in 1975. I still have it. When I'm able to ride a bike, I love to get on it. And that's an institution in our community that is sort of nationally recognized and very well respected. He's survived by his 3 children and the many grandchildren. We express our condolences to his family, and services are being held on the February the 29th. And I don't believe that I have anything else. So.
Mr. Mayor, could we, one more item?
Yes, sir.
We can give an update, Maria can give an update on the closure of 38th Avenue for the Wadsworth project.
Director DeAndrea.
Yes, just briefly, we've sent out quite a few notices, and we've also put it out on social media that 38th Avenue cross traffic going across either direction, eastbound or westbound on 38th, will be closed beginning March 11th, most likely, depending on the weather here over the next week or so. But that needs to be closed for some very deep excavation work for new water and sanitary sewer. So it's about an 18-foot excavation, and so we do have to close down the intersection to all through traffic. We will maintain emergency access, and we have been coordinating with police, fire, as well as the hospital to make sure that we can still get those folks through. So it will be staffed 24/7 with flaggers to allow those emergency vehicles to go through. But meanwhile, please be patient. Please continue to move about through the area, and we appreciate everybody's patience and understanding as we get through this difficult part of the construction. Thanks.
Let me ask you a question. How is that going to impact pedestrian traffic through the intersection?
Pedestrians will also not be able to walk through, so they will have to go up either south to another street crossing or further north. So we do have existing pedestrian detours in place on the project, and they should utilize those.
Okay, and we have signage that would indicate where all of those
Yes.
are.
Mhm.
Thank you very much, and I'll tell you just anecdotally, I was by 44th and Wadsworth not long ago, and it's certainly looking great, and I look forward to concluding this project in our city. I think it's going to be great. Councilwoman Hulteen.
Thank you for that update. So it was a hot topic at our District 2 meeting. And so if you could just give a little bit more clarity about where the lack of access will be on 38th Avenue. In particular, we had residents really concerned about access to the Safeway Shopping Center. If they're going west on 38th, will they be able to enter into the Safeway parking lot was, I would say, probably one of the biggest questions we got.
Yes, so the 38th Avenue will be closed down, not only in the intersection, but all the way to Vance Street, so the next signal to the east of Wadsworth. So that would include the Safeway entrance as well. So people coming from the west to get to Safeway will have to route themselves up to 44th and then either come in the back way along through the shopping center, or we are trying to get a southbound left turn in place into Safeway, and we want to have that open before the 11th. So people, again, west of Wadsworth would have to go up to 44th, come south on Wadsworth to turn into Safeway. They would not be able to go across the intersection at 38th.
Okay.
Or they could travel, I guess, south to 32nd and then go northbound on Wadsworth to get into Safeway as well. You just won't be able to cross, but you will still, all the traffic will still be present on Wadsworth.
Okay, so if you're east of Wadsworth, going west on 38th, you should still be able to enter into the Safeway parking.
I'll have to clarify, because I'm not sure if they're going to take the whole intersection. Vance is the signal that you get into
Okay.
Safeway.
Yeah.
I believe they're stopping it just west of the intersection, but I'll have to verify that.
Okay, that was a big question that came up. And to the mayor's point, I'm not sure where the next pedestrian crossing is. You'd have to, I think, go all the way to 44th to cross or to 32nd?
Those are the two detours, yes.
Okay, that is a 25-minute detour for pedestrians.
Yes, unfortunately, so just as the vehicles, we can't allow pedestrian traffic across those open excavation areas. It's just too dangerous there. So it is a significant inconvenience for pedestrians during
So
this 2 to 3 week
I'm really
period.
concerned we're getting a lot of people darting across Wadsworth and not actually doing that detour. Can we really be vigilant, and if we're seeing that behavior, take into consideration possibly like flagged crossings somewhere, because we are going to see people darting across Wadsworth.
Okay.
They aren't going to walk that.
Yep.
Is there any possibility to have pedestrian traffic at, is it 3 Acre Lane? We still have a traffic signal there.
We do. I don't believe it has the PED signal or the PED timing flash counters on that, but we could possibly accommodate it there. I'll
Okay.
check on that too.
I think if there was an opportunity that's somewhat mid-block, but I'm going to let you guys figure it out, because you know how to do this. I don't even play a traffic engineer on TV, so.
The projects and properties map, I think that generally it has Wadsworth on there, which then pushes people to the Wadsworth information page, which does have information on the closure.
I was just thinking it would be visually helpful, I think, for people to see the map of where they have to go before they hit the intersection. But just a thought. Thanks.
Councilor Hoppe.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And if you are able to identify a space closer than 44th or 32nd, being those are excessive pedestrian detours, would you be putting signage up at the intersection with that pedestrian detour on it so that they can visually see where they're going?
Yes, so there already is existing signage for a pedestrian route for north-south, but there will be signage specifically that says for pedestrians and bicyclists to go a different route. There will.
Okay. Councilor Snell.
One more.
Okay.
You just mentioned the closure would be on the west side of Vance. Is that correct? Because there's residences on Vance. They're going south by the church, so it would be on the west side so that folks would be able to get home.
Definitely, yeah.
Okay.
So I believe the closure is just west, so on the west leg of the intersection, so you can still go, if you're coming from the east on 38th, you can still turn north, still turn south. You just can't continue further west.
Got it. Okay.
But I'll
Thank you.
verify that. If it's not that case, I'll verify it. That's it.
Thank you.
Get a bite to eat on the east side of town, so. Okay. Is there any more business to come before council tonight? And Mr. Goff, correct me if I'm right, we have a study session 1 week from tonight?
We do.
Okay, always keep me on track there. All right, if there's no more business to come with council, thank you all for being here. This meeting is adjourned. All right, thank you.